Where unions are weak, workers get poorer. Where unions are weak, the rich get richer. If you've got a super rich elite that is intent on becoming richer, and the means by which they become richer is to make the rest of the society poorer, it's trade unions and their democracy that is the hope of working people. All of the wealth in our society is created by workers, and it's their labour that creates the super rich. And you've got to ask these people, how rich do they need to be? If you're worth 10 billion, do you need to be worth 20 billion? What we need in this country and all other countries is a distribution of wealth so that those that do the work and create the wealth get a fair share of the fruits of their labour. If you take health workers and educators and people providing public services, most of those people haven't had a pay rise for nearly a decade. We know that wealth is being transferred to the super rich in our society, and it's the ordinary women and men around this country, often in low paid or modestly paid jobs, that are paying the price. Many workers can't keep up with the cost of living and they're facing really difficult choices. And they're turning to their trade unions to defend them. They're turning to the unions in order to get a square deal off corporate Britain. And because they've lost the argument, the Tories are now seeking to change the law, and they do that a lot. Whenever they lose an argument, they seek to get a bogeyman, which is the trade unions, and now they're seeking to repress the right to strike, and nobody voted for this government. The government is proposing a whole set of anti-union laws, which originated with Kwasi Kwarteng when he was around for a couple of weeks, and are now being taken up again by the government. And what that actually means, when you strip it down, is that workers will be conscripted, forced to go to work against their will. Now that is something that is really, really a bad development. It's an oppression of your right to withdraw your labour, which is in international law a right that every worker in the world should have. So it is a real form of suppression of human rights and a really dangerous and dark development, the sort of thing that we had from oppressive regimes in the Eastern Bloc, and before that in fascist Europe and other totalitarian regimes in the past, where workers are not allowed to express their rights, and indeed they're not allowed to campaign against poverty, which is what the trade unions are mainly doing. And of course, coupled with the police bill and other law and order bills that they're bringing in, they're actually suppressing the right to express yourself at all and protest against things that you see as incorrect in our society. It's not easy to strike now. The trade unions have to jump through all sorts of hoops and hurdles, and in the future that will be even more difficult. But the importance of the unions being a source of opposition and being a source of dissent in our society and a source of freedom cannot be underestimated. So if you take our own history, the ability to vote to get universal suffrage was supported by the trade unions. Having the weekend and time off is a trade union campaign. Sick pay, holiday pay, premium pay for overtime, the right to get annual leave. All these issues have been fought for by trade unions in the UK and of course all around the world where people have got a more advanced form of living. In societies where you don't have free trade unions, all of those things have been stripped away. And if trade unions are oppressed, the people of this country will be oppressed fairly quickly after. The government is going after the unions because we've got a kind of consensus politics in this country at the minute where the official opposition, Labour and Liberal Democrats and others, don't really seem to be asserting themselves as a real opposition. And the trade unions are putting up an opposition, and the main issue at the minute in the UK is the cost of living crisis. And of course the job of the trade unions is to negotiate good terms and conditions, good pensions, good sick pay, good holiday pay, and fundamentally good wages so that people can afford to pay their mortgages, their rents, their food bills, their clothing bills, and of course their energy bills, which is a fundamental at the moment. So the government quite rightly sees the trade unions as an opposition, a focal point for dissent. And instead of dealing with that, taking it head on and maybe winning an argument against us, which, you know, they're entitled to put up their argument in a free society, or even better, making deals with us so that we get compromises and we can settle some of these disputes, they're trying to make us illegal. And that's exactly what repressive regimes do all around the world. We don't want that here. We want a free society where trade unions can operate in a democratic way. There are a lot of strikes happening at the moment, and what I think is coming home to roost is 12 years of austerity, starting with the Osborne and Cameron government, going through May and Johnson, now Sunak, and we had that little bit of Truss. It's been the same prescription for working class people. Wages have been suppressed compared to inflation. Inflation is now at record levels and people are really feeling the pinch. So that's coming to a boiling point. So in some ways the responses of the trade unions are coincidental because everybody's feeling that pinch caused by inflation. But also trade unionists are taking inspiration from each other. And I hope we can coordinate that for the good of all working people so that we can get some deals that fit the needs of the day for everyone that's working in our economy. So we're right to leverage, we're right to say to the government, you've got to properly fund public services in our hospitals, in our schools and so on, but also you've got to pay people properly. We're seeing teachers, nurses and other healthcare workers and professionals are leaving those sectors in droves to go and work in environments that are easier, less stressful and better rewarded. So if we want to have a health service, if we want to educate our kids, if we want to look after our elders and everybody else in society, we've got to fund our services appropriately and make sure that the people that are looking after us are well looked after in terms of their pay packet as well. In this world which seems to be running away from us, there's a lot of social media activity, there's a lot of online activity, but those things don't change the world on their own. We need people in their trade unions, we need people in community campaigns. It could be about your local nursery or your old people's home. It could be about something bigger, like the future of the NHS or your education service, or it could be about something global, such as the future of our environment. Trade unionists have got to make sure that we're involved in all of those campaigns, and that means in every part of the UK, in every village, every county, every town, every city, but also in every sector which we deal with. The trade unionists have got to be there, pushing the professional politicians, pushing the people that have got their hands on the levers of power to act in a way that is fair for everyone. So don't think that you can just put up an emoji and that's going to change the world. We need people on the streets in their campaigns, putting those with power under pressure to share that power with the rest of us. One of the oldest slogans that we have in our movement is unity is strength. And that goes with the opposite of that division is fatal. So let's stand united together in a trade union movement, in a trade union family, with everybody working to build a better society. It's difficult for working class people to get their voices heard, to get trade union leaders heard, to get the expressions of solidarity that we want to hear. And channels like this, Double Down News, it's really important that you join us, that you become linked up, and that we have this ability to express ourselves. So join Double Down News on Patreon.